I'm Buzz Knight, and welcome to the Taking a Walk podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking with somebody who has carved out one of the most fearless and fascinating careers in Hollywood. She's an actress, a musician, a writer. She's had iconic film roles in movies like Bound, Face Off, Cocktail, and Showgirls. She's appeared on Broadway. She's been in rock bands. She's already written books before, but now she's adding a new book to her resume called Alpha Pussy. And trust me, it's as bold and unapologetic as she is. I can't wait to talk with Gina Gershon next on Taking a Walk. Gina Gershon, welcome to the Taking a Walk podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I love the book. It's got a great vibe to it. Alpha Pussy. The adolescent years, to me, are a cross between Lord of the Flies and Mean Girls, maybe with a dash of Stand By Me. Is that a fair take?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Lord of the Flies, that's pretty scary. Um, sure. Why not? It's got a little bit of everything in it, I suppose.
It definitely does. It keeps you on your toes for sure. Um, the book, you pay homage to your mom, Mickey. Tell us what those last days that you spent with your mom meant to you. They were a very emotional part of the story.
Yeah. It's funny. I wasn't really ever planning on putting that part of it didn't really fit what I was going through or what I was aiming for thematically. And yet, during COVID, and then she got sick and I was in Los Angeles. So I actually had, the last few years spent quite a bit of time with her and which really proved to be a blessing because she was, she couldn't really go out. So we just kind of hung out and talked quite a bit. And she was quite vulnerable and not guarded, as was I suppose. And, um, I just found it really interesting that that whole story with the president of the Girls League, really kind of came out of nowhere. And somehow it just really stayed with me. And then it was really just one day it popped in my head. I'm like, oh my God, like she was such an alpha pussy, everything she did. I realized I started the whole book with, being inside of her, like she didn't know she was pregnant and all that. And I just thought, oh wow, this kind of goes full circle. It's not a, a how-to book or an advice book, but I think the only advice I really give, and I give it to anyone because I've really proven it to be true, is, know your parents and know what is your relationship with them and what their relationship is with their parents, because in between all of that, and their shadows, and sometimes you're carrying things that you don't realize that's not yours, that's theirs, that you have issues that you don't know why this thing is going on. But you'll find the answers in your parents, and sometimes that's so hard. But it was very lucky. And then I realized that by healing her and her telling me these stories, it released something in her. And then it like released it in me as well, which was really unexpected and beautiful. And it just made its way as I was writing it at the end. It just started coming out of me. Everything else was stories I was telling, and it was kind of thing in real time it was coming out. I don't know. I just thought I'm putting it in. It didn't seem to make sense, but then it did make sense. Do you know what I mean? That's a very long answer.
It
If I,
makes total sense. And I'm so glad that you went there because life is so precious and so fast. And then suddenly, you know, a parent reaches the end of the line there. I wouldn't say it's advice that you're necessarily given, but I guess it is that to know your parents and what they stand for and maybe what their parents stood for is such an important thing for a generation, I think, to hear.
and it's not, I think it's even more than what they stood for. I think it's like interpersonal dynamics, There's that whole family structure thing. I forget what they call it. I mean, I remember when I was doing, acting classes with my teacher, my best teacher, Sandra Seacat, we didn't really do scenes. I remember there was a class called The Family, and you literally, do your first dinner table scene you remember and your last. And it's very interesting. And you act it out. And it was like all the dynamics that you had then, you still had now. And it's very subtle. Some were not so subtle. But I learned a lot during that. I learned, about myself and about how I dealt with other people. And I think, the whole point with the part of being to me an alpha pussy, is just knowing who you are and where you stand and or how you feel about things. If you're uncomfortable, just to taking your own power back and not let people push you around or tell you what to do. You have to kind of know yourself, as an artist, as a person. I think it's just really important.
Your career has been so diverse, film, TV, Broadway, music, writing. When you look back at that young girl starting out in Hollywood, what do you think she would be most surprised by?
I would be surprised and kind of relieved that, I was so maybe it's because I came from a family of a lot of musicians. There was music all around me, and I saw how serious everyone took it. I didn't take it lightly. So to me, it's like what you do, you really fully do. And even though I love music, at the time, I'm like, no, I'm going to be a serious actress. I need to really just focus on that. And I think I gave up music a little bit at an early age, just because it was also a different time. Now you could do everything. Then you like, are you acting? Are you dancing? Are you singing? I couldn't, and I wanted to be so serious. So I kind of gave that up. So I think I would have been relieved that I found my way back at times to music, because it's just what's more fun than music. Um, and how I kind of, maybe it's just a getting older thing. It's just like whatever kind of floats my boat, like I'm going to paint now. I'm just going to go to painting for a while. I'm going to write. I'm going to write. I think I was so rigid with what I wanted to do that I wasn't into the flow of things. I was just like, I'm going to be an actress. I mean, maybe that's what I had to do at the time. And that's really all I wanted to do. But there were a couple opportunities and moments that I look back going like, you know, I should have been a little bit more like, yeah, this sounds fun. But I was very focused.
My take on it also is the impact that your mother and your father had on you in terms of giving you this freedom and giving you enough rope to get yourself in trouble, but also treating you with incredible respect even when you messed up. I mean, and
Yeah.
I think that gave you greater freedom as an artist, don't you think?
I do. I definitely do. Especially my dad, I think that there are moments where I thought for sure he would say, "You are not doing that movie, Mo, daughter." And he never, anything I wanted to do, they were like, I mean, my dad more than my mom. I think my mom worried a little bit more, but my dad was like, if you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. And if you're not, you leave or you don't do it. And I think it definitely helped me learn how to make up my own decisions because he was like, it's your body, it's your life. Like, are you comfortable? Is that what you want to do? And it really made me think like, oh, do I really want to do this? No, actually, I don't even really want to do this. And I never had that moment of, someone asked me once, like, oh, you were so rebellious. You did these sort of movies, Bound and Showgirls. It's like, sometimes people rebel against their parents, like, I'm going to do this really wild thing. And like, the thought never even crossed my mind, because I didn't have to rebel against anything. I think they gave me a lot of freedom to make my own decisions, which is important, especially later on, when you have agents or managers or people telling you what you should be doing. And, between me and me, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Like, that sounds weird. So I did, for better or worse, really what I wanted to do. I guess it depends what your end game is.
Bound is considered a groundbreaking film. What was it about that script that made you say, yes to that? And did you have any sense at the time it would become a cult classic?
No, I had no idea. I mean, no one wanted me to do that script. I had to leave my agents overbound because in their mind, it was time to do a big studio film and make me into a big movie star because Showgirls was coming out. And I was like, I don't know if Showgirls is going to be what everyone thinks it's going to be. So it was really important for me to do a part that to me was really didn't have all the glitz and the glam and, very pure acting. And when I read that script, first of all, I felt, writing was just so great. And I'd never read a part for a woman like that. It was always the hero parts were always for men, really. It was like the traditional guy part that I always loved to watch, but I'm like, wow, I get to cut off my hair, cut off my nails, like, just have a complete 180 from what I had just done, which was exciting to me as an actress. And then I thought, these newcomers, these Wachowskis, I could just tell they were really good. I could just sense these Wachowskis know how to direct. So that was very exciting to me.
And then you mentioned Showgirls. It's an interesting trajectory for that film in Hollywood history, you have to admit. I mean, it was panned and then it's been celebrated. What has your relationship been with that film over the years? And can you paint a description for us of the $7,000 G string?
That movie is that's movie is to me interesting in so many different levels. The fact that it was completely panned, you know, people were like, this is the worst movie ever, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, I can't do an interview without people saying, oh my God, let's talk about Showgirls. I love it. You know, um, so in a way, it taught me to not really take reviews too seriously. And there was a movie the other day. Oh, when the great Bud Cort died, and I was reading about Harold and Maude, one of my all-time favorite movies. And of course, that got panned when it first came out. So many great movies that we love. Not that I'm putting Showgirls on the same level as Harold and Maude. I definitely am not. Um, but I came. Luckily, they were for the most part kind to me in the reviews, but it's still not a good feeling that you're in this complete bomb. But if you read the good ones, you got to read the bad ones, and it all didn't really mean anything to me after a while. I knew what I had done. I was confident with my work in it. I didn't direct it. In fact, I thought it was a much different film when I took it. I envisioned one of Verhoeven's very dark Dutch projects that I love so much, his other films. And then it certainly wasn't that. I learned a lot of good lessons on that movie. You think you're going to go in to perform one way or in a certain project, and it's completely not that. So then guess what? You know, you got to adjust. It's like going and it's like, oh, you're going to go do a little acoustic number with your little cute nylon guitar. And then you get there, it's like, oh, it's a stadium show. Like, okay, this isn't going to work. We got to bring out electric guitars. We got to bring out amps. We got to bring out a band, maybe. Like, you just have to adjust to what's going on else and still stay true with what you're doing within a different structure.
What was the first time you heard a Jew's harp, and how awful was your first experience playing one?
It's pretty bad, pretty bloody, as they should be. I first heard the Jews harp on Snoopy, when Charlie Brown, when you saw Snoopy, dun, 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 bam, 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 bam. I don't think the Jews harp is in that part, but do, 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 you'd hear this somewhere in between, but he was doing this. And I guess I heard it somewhere. And I think I also heard it, that's the first time I saw it, but I remember clocking it. Uh, is it Squeezebox, The Who? At the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a sound that always kind of caught my ear. Anyway, when I saw Snoopy playing it on the TV, I was at the store. This was during my, klepto years. I was 7, and I saw the Jew's harp in the store with Snoopy on it, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the Jew's harp. I think they called it the mouth harp or the Jaws harp. It has so
Yep.
many different names.
Yeah.
And so I took it, stole it, to give it some authenticity.
Yeah.
And then I went home and I tried to play it. And, honestly, there was blood everywhere because, I didn't know how to do it. And your lips get caught in it. And then Marie Gibson, who was a woman who'd been living with us since I was 2 years old, she said, Child, give me that thing. She goes, I learned how to play that on the plantation. And she grabbed it from me and she started playing it like nobody's business, like bow, bow. And I was like, what? Like, So she showed me how to play it, and I just thought it was so cool, you know?
I made the mistake after first hearing, remember the band up on Cripple Creek?
Mhm.
After hearing that and loving the band, I was like, oh, that's great. I can't play a lick of anything. Let me pick up one of those mouth harps. So I thought I was a big shot, picked it up, and I don't think my mouth ever recovered from it.
Yeah.
It's rough for sure.
Yeah. I know people are always like, show me how to play it. I'm like, you know what? Sir, I said, I'll do it with a disclaimer. You might chip your tooth and you're definitely get bloody at the beginning, until you know how to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
but
You've
yeah,
always had this incredible rock and roll spirit. I mean, in the book, you make it sound so easy being able to pull together pretty much Guns N' Roses to be able to be out with you. Um,
crazy, right?
I, I mean, it was marvelous how it came together. You love music so deeply. Um, how has music informed your acting and your creative life overall?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think because I got away from it for so long, and then when I was asked to do cabaret, when Sam Mendes said, "Oh, will you do cabaret? You don't have to sing that good. It's the part, it's more of this." And then, of course, as soon as I start singing those songs, I was like, first of all, these songs are amazing. And secondly, like, oh yeah, I love to sing. I forgot that I know how to sing. Um, and so I remembered how much I love singing in front of an audience and performing. And from that, of course, it led to going on tour. It led to that Pray for Rock and Roll. Then it went to going on tour. And I kind of went into a whole musical realm, which I was super into. And the thing that I think music did when once I went back into acting, it it kind of loosened me up in a bit. It felt more like, not jazz, but like improv it felt more like being in the moment and really playing off of other people as have to do when you're playing in a band. Um, I think it gave me freedom as an actor. I think my improvisational skills definitely got much better, for sure. I mean, it's all the same thing, like on different sides of the crystal, it's different versions of expressing yourself and how do you do it. And I feel like, it's nice being in the arts, whatever, because everything can inform everything. And you just don't know how it informs it, but it does on some level, of course.
You've sang at the Cafe Carlisle at the wonderful Carlisle Hotel, one of the great places, certainly Bemelman's Bar, one of the great
So,
places in history. Um, what, as an artist, is that like performing in that venue?
wow, it felt very it was really magical. I was really honored when they asked me to do a 2-week residency. When I'd been there before, I saw Bobby Short. I had seen like real, and I take jazz musicians especially very seriously because that's what my uncle was a jazz musician. So I kind of grew up watching the greatest jazz musicians around playing. So I really have so much respect for it. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do at the Cafe Carlisle? The first thing is like, I better put a shit hot band together. I didn't care any money they gave me. I'm like, great, I'm going to allocate it. And I got the great, Stephen Bernstein, who's my buddy and I'd known. I'm like, we need to, I asked Christian McBride. Of course, Christian can't do it, but he's like, go to this person, go to this person. I just kind of went all out and I just found the great band that I just wanted to listen to and have respect for. And then the next step was like, oh, wait, I don't sing that way though. And Stephen kept saying, yeah, you do, just do it. And the guys were really great. So I really kind of did a whole weird show from, gosh, Ida Cox all the way to like Chrissy Hine, all the way to like, it was, some of my stuff, but I like to tell stories. So I kind of hung it on the line of, wild women in my life. But it was a blast. I mean, you go downstairs, you play in that room. It's beautiful. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'd like to do it again, actually. But yeah, it was really fun.
And Miley Cyrus wrote a blurb for the book. Did you happen to see Miley when she played? I think she played at Bemelman's, or maybe she
Oh,
played at both. Did you happen to go?
no. I've seen Miley though. I hadn't seen, I worked with Miley one night at some little movie, LOL, a long time ago. And we just talked that one night and we just really got along. And then I was at the Chateau Marmont right when she was coming out, I think with Wrecking Ball during that period. And so she just did a piano and vocals in a very small room. And she was like, "Oh my God, hi." I said, I didn't even know if she'd remember me, but we really had a nice bonding moment. And then I don't know why she's such an alpha pussy. She embodies everything, the spirit of an alpha pussy, So for some reason, I just sent her a note thinking, this is weird. And she was like, I would love to. And she started reading the book and she loved it. And I was really flattered by her blurb. I read it. I was like, oh my God. I almost started crying. It was so sweet.
It's awesome. I
Yeah.
don't want to give too much away about a story about a guy who has a purple limo that you encountered. Who would
Okay.
that be? Maybe Prince. But have you encountered a purple limo since?
Only purple limo I've ever been in was the one with Prince.
And Rick James impressions too?
He did a couple Rick James impressions, not gonna lie. It was really good.
And
Um,
and how difficult is it for you to, with a straight face, think of the whole Chappelle bit that he did with Prince and with Eddie Murphy's brother and everything? I'm sure you've seen that, haven't you?
I haven't.
Oh my God, it's
Have
one
I
of
not seen this? I love
it's
Dave.
it's one of the best bits. I promise, especially with
Okay.
your personal experience, you will just absolutely just think it's a riot. And apparently, most of it is true. And the
Dave is
bit
so brilliant. I love him so much, but I'll look it up. I can't believe I haven't seen it.
you'll
Prince and Rick James,
Yep, it's Prince, Dave Chappelle, Rick James, Charlie Murphy. Oh,
Charlie. Okay, I'll check it out. Oh no. I mean, I'm obsessed with Dave. I think he's incredible, but I haven't seen absolutely everything because there's so much to see. Um,
yeah, there is so much. So back to music here. Thinking about the soundtrack of your life.
mm.
Um, are there a couple of songs that particularly stick out to you that are the soundtrack of your life as you kind of reflect on the book and your love of music?
There certainly would not be one. I mean, for a while when I got into high school, you know, my sister, she was always in the music business and she'd be like, you have to go see, the Talking Heads tonight. I'm like, what are the Talking Heads? I have a test tomorrow, Tracy. Like, she's like, just go to the Roxy. There's a ticket. You need to go. And I'm like, okay. And of course, you see David Byrne jumping all over for like more food about, the album. Buildings and Food. And I was like, oh my God. So then I remember when she told me, you got to go see Elvis. I'm like, Elvis, isn't he dead? Like Elvis Presley? I don't get. And it was Elvis Costello, of course, doing My Aim is True. Like it was his that, I was young and I'm like, Tracy, she said, just go. And of course, I was so blown away. And to me, every album that Elvis would do seemed to have a theme song of what I was going through at that moment. So he was like my guy. Um, but God, I couldn't pick just one song, to be totally honest. It's too hard.
Well, I knew you were going to probably mention Talking Heads because there was one point in the book where you're thinking, "Oh my God, just like that song, what have I done?"
Oh yeah, when I'm
Once,
hanging up on a rope, it's like, my God, what have I done?
yeah. So I
Done.
thought of that for sure, but also thinking of your friendship with Dave Stewart,
Hmm,
who's such a brilliant artist, and I know Dave recently has done a whole bunch of Bob Dylan covers, which I think are fantastic. Are you a fan of Dylan?
of course. How are you not a fan of Dylan's?
Any particular era of Dylan that you love, or other than all of it?
Oh, I had a really funny, I have a lot, Bob Dylan has been he's been like a good pal of mine in the last few years, ever since there's that story when we went sparring and then we became friends after that. But I'll never forget that, when I made my record that was stuck in my head after, when I was promoting Pray for Rock and Roll, I went on tour to promote the movie, to promote the record, and of course, Sherry Love Dog, who the movie was based on, 3 weeks before I'm going out to promote the music with Girls Against Boys. She's like, a lot of these songs don't really work live. And of course they didn't, because like the whole point of the movie is like she never really made it as an artist. Um, they weren't great songs. Some are very interesting, but hardly commercial songs that are going to take off. And so I started writing songs like a maniac, just because I'm like, oh my God, I gotta like do something that I'm gonna want to. I just got the bug, so I just stuff started coming in, and of course, when I was on tour promoting the movie and this, like just songs started like landing in my head that they needed to come out, because they're going to drive me insane. And then I thought, well, I'll just record a record because I have to, when they just are stuck in your head and they make you insane until they get out. And it's like, please leave me alone. It's like, okay, fine, I'll get, it's like this whole weird relationship you're having. Anyway, so I made the record and then I went over to Bob's just kind of randomly. He was home. I kept thinking, how do I, should I, and I didn't really talk to him about music, but there were so many questions I wanted to ask him, but he knew. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to mix this record. I don't know how to mix it. I've never really, why are you making another record? What do you mean? I haven't done it because I did one for the movie, but that wasn't mine." By the time I was leaving, he asked me about my stereo in my car, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is he going to ask me to play my music to him in this stupid, like crappy cassette player? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, would you like to listen to my new album? And that album was Modern Times, which is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so just listening to it with Bob looking at me, listening to it. First of all, it's a brilliant album. The tones, I love the whole quality of it. So that like has a special, place in my heart because I just remember so much of it. And talking to him about it. But I love, as far as recent albums, that one will always be very special to me.
Oh, thank you for sharing that story. My God,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Writing a book is such a solitary process compared to making a film.
Yeah.
Is there anything that surprised you about that experience? I mean, you had written a book before, so.
It taught me more how to be alone. It's almost by necessity. I find for some reason with acting, I could like work on something and I could be aware and you pick up things, it's just like as you're percolating, but I could really work on it very solidly. And then I know how to wipe my feet at the end of the day, so to speak, and then I can get on with my life and then I can go back to it. With writing, I find, and maybe just because, I'm so new to it, it really lingered. Like it's hard. Like I remember writing the other book and my boyfriend at the time, he's like, "Oh, we're going out to dinner. We have to go out to dinner." And I just was useless, really. I shouldn't be around people when I'm doing that because I just would be there at dinner. And luckily, they were all speaking in a different language. And I just kind of went, but inside my head, I just heard these characters talking, like stories just kept going. And I'd be like, excuse me, and I'd write something down. So I was very, I think when I'm doing that, I see why writers are so isolated at times. Um, because sometimes, I'm not like a writer that I'm like, first of all, I think I'm more of a storyteller. And you know, in this book, there's a couple moments I allowed myself to write and have a little bit more fun. But for the most part, I really just wanted it to stay in my voice, like I'm telling you a story, the way I would remember telling it. And a lot of the times I'd have to approach it the way I would approach a scene sometimes or sense memory stuff. I would just lay there, something would come up, and I'm like, what is that? What is that ball I'm seeing? Like, and then all of a sudden, you almost go into not hypnosis, but then all of a sudden you see the whole scene. It's like, oh my God, I remember that. Why am I thinking about that? And then you kind of keep chasing it. It's like, oh, that's what this is about. That's so interesting. Then you try to like just write it exactly the way you see it, you know? So I just found, I guess to answer your question, it's like it's very isolating, but it's because you kind of have to. You just have to kind of percolate and be in your own brain a little bit and allow things to come up.
Was your experience with Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm, was that a fun experience?
The funnest, so fun. I mean, that is like the funnest gig ever because you were just completely improvising. There's like, okay, you're going to come in and flirt with Larry. It's like, okay, and then you just go. Like in every scene, it's like, oh, that's great, that's great. Now you're going to have an argument about this, and that's it. There's one line, and then you just make it up, and the two of you are going at it. And obviously, he's so brilliant and funny, and I really had a great time working with him. It was one of the best gigs ever.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, before we close, I have to ask you the question because it's called taking a walk. Is there somebody or some group, a couple more, you're afforded more than one, who you'd like to take a walk with, living or dead?
I mean, there's so many people. I can't even. I mean, I would like to walk alone with them each time, so I could have real conversations. I mean, of course, I'd love to walk with my dad because he's been gone for so many years. I'd love to talk with him. My Uncle Jack, I'd really like to talk to. My mom, of course. Um, weirdly enough, you know who comes into my dreams a lot? I swear to God, this is the weirdest thing. We always have the best time. We've even written weird songs together that I wake up going, wait, what is this song? Jimi Hendrix comes into my dreams a lot. We,
Wow.
it's so weird. And we'll be like smoking a joint or we'll go to In-N-Out Burger or, like random stuff. And we just like laugh. I don't know what he means to me. I really tried to think about it, but I don't know. I really have a good time with him in my dreams. So he would be really fun to take a walk with. I'd be curious to talk to him.
That's
I
a
mean,
pretty good list. I get,
yeah. I
I
would say Jesus also, if Jesus really, he existed at some point to be like, get his take on this crazy world, which I'm sure he'd be like, this is bonkers, what's going on. I didn't say any of that stuff. That is not what I intended. Um, oh my God, the list would go on and on and on, really. But that's
I'm pretty certain you'd be fun to take a walk with because you're an observer of everything, especially, with now you're in New York, and one of the most fun things in New York is to just watch people and kind of try to think what's going on in their head, right?
Yeah, I mean, I should say a living person. You know who I love taking walks with, who's like become such a great guiding light and such a beautiful person in my life is Laurie Anderson. She's just such a great mind. And we could just like sometimes we'll just walk and talk and talk. And I can't really remember anything we talk about, but it's just very flowy and she's very insightful and she's been very influential to me on things.
Yeah, she's pretty brilliant, isn't she?
She's brilliant and kind and just so generous of spirit and just like a really great example of a human being um, to me. I get very inspired by her kindness. Obviously she's brilliant because her mind is just, she's one of the few people that whatever she asks me to do, I say, yes. Hey, what are you doing? Yep, I'll do. What are we doing? We're going to see a concert for spiders. Like, okay, let's do it. You know, she's a very interesting, curious person. She's one of the most curious people. So I always like taking a walk with her.
Well, Gina, it's
There's
been an
one living
honor.
person. I gave you a living person.
You did. You gave a good list. It was
Okay.
awesome. And Alpha Pussy is fantastic.
Oh,
Congratulations on it.
thank you. I'm so glad you liked it. Thank you for reading it.
And for all of your work and the joy that you give us. And thanks for being on Taking a Walk.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.